Alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. This is me, Abu Bara Muhammad Amriki at Black American Muslim Opinions. And today we're going to discuss how multicultural Muslim communities hamper the development of Black American Muslims. So this particular video, I want to put a disclaimer. This does not mean in this particular video that I'm telling African American Muslims who are part of a multicultural Muslim community to leave it or to abandon it or things like this. Well, I just want to speak about from another perspective that most African American Muslim do not think they do not base their thinking on community efforts as in Black Americans as an ethno group. So many of them who might hear this video who are afflicted with individualism, which is promoted in Western European culture, and many African American Muslims, we are affected by this Eurocentric individualism, where we don't know how to work together as a race. So, with the video, multicultural Muslim communities, how does it damper the African American Muslim when it comes to building and developing and dealing with the issues in the Black American communities? So one of the issues that you will find with African American Muslims who are part of a multicultural Muslim community is that many times they use those communities as a excuse to not deal with their own Black communities. And not speaking about those African American Muslims who are in the multicultural Muslim community and they are the only Muslims in their family or the only Muslims in the Black community. I'm not speaking about these individuals, but it can apply to you. So most African American Muslims, due to their mind setting fixed into individualism and don't understand how to work as collectivism. Many times when we are in these multicultural Muslim communities, we are not dealing with our own Black people when it comes to calling them to Islam. And many times we are not fixing the Black social ills that plague the Black community. And sometimes when we are in these multicultural communities, we get comfortable there because no one in those communities hold those Black African American Muslims accountable for what's going on in the Black community related to giving dawah or fixing Black social ills. So looking at the psyche of most Black American Muslim who don't have a good understanding of working together as a group, and many times when they're in these communities, that they are being hindered. They're being hindered from developing their own communities. And I'm not saying about those individuals or in these communities who still are working in the Black community, calling them to Islam, or calling them to Allah, addressing a lot of the social ills that plague our communities. But those people in the African American Muslim community who find themselves in the multicultural Muslim community and they think that they are better than the average Black person, rather they're Muslim or not Muslim. So in some cases that when they're in these multicultural communities, they're hiding out, they're hiding from going inside the Black communities and developing them by calling people to Islam, taking examples from Islam that deal with social issues and fixing them in the Black community and calling their people to it. Another way that the multicultural Muslim communities hamper the African American Muslim is for those African American Muslims who are financially stable, who have good business skills. In a lot of cases, the multicultural Muslim communities use these Black African American Muslim to develop their intersectional mixed communities, whether they're Arab Muslims, Desi Muslims, or Asian Muslims. They use the talents of the Black American Muslim to benefit those nationalities in their community. And I give you an example of a case that a Black African American Muslim who is a businessman, who's business minded, who have money, and he would donate his money, his time into these multicultural Muslim communities, but he would not donate his time, his money, and his talents in developing the Black Muslim community. He would not take his money and his time to develop them, and he would cast his people's struggles away Rather at the same time, his money, his talents, his works go to build the multicultural Muslim community, where in many cases he has no opinion, he has no value, or he has no say so in these multicultural communities. He's just there for the people to benefit from whatever they could bring. If it's money, if it's wealth, it's a particular talent, meaning a skill, a know-how, and those Muslims will benefit in those communities from this individual, but he will not go out and give the same time, energy, benefit, talents to develop his own black community. In most cases, is due to self-hate. The next scenario is related to the callers of Islam from the African American Muslim community who have knowledge based on Quran and Sunnah. Either they studied in the Islamic institution or they travel to study Islam, and then when they come back, they find themselves working inside the multicultural Muslim community, meaning that the Black African American Muslims are not the majority. So what they would do with this individual, if he has a good understanding of Islam, they will make him a imam, they will make him a caller, they will give him a job in the masjid, working, and that would lead them, the majority of the Muslims in the community who are either Arab or either Desi Muslims or either Asian Muslims, that would leave them from the duty of seeking knowledge themselves. So, for example, they came to America to make money. They came to America for dunya reasons, and they busy themselves seeking out the dunya. So they will find this African American Muslim who is talented. He has a good understanding of Quran and Sunnah. They will let him be the imam, or they will let him give the khutbah, but he has no say so in their community, and he will work in these communities while he's not working in his own black community, not calling the people to Islam, not building Islamic masjids or Islamic centers, not giving dawah to the people day and night. في المثال النوح عليه السلام وLut, the example of Nuh and Lut, we can find in Quran about Nuh that he called his people days and nights, openly and secretly, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to worship Allah. Even though they rejected his message, Nuh would spend his nights and his days calling the people to Allah, even though he did not receive a lot of people entering into his message. So, for example, the African American Muslim who has good understanding of Quran and Sunnah, you will find some of them in those multicultural Muslim communities. There will be the Imam, there will be the Khatib, and that relieve the other Muslims who are either Arabs, Desis, Asian Muslims. They relieve them of their duties of learning the deen, teaching their children Islam. They would give that responsibility to the African American Muslim because they want to busy themselves in chasing the dunya. And that same African American Muslim will not take his knowledge and call his people to Islam. And then in many cases, when they get into issues in the community, whether it's related to race, marrying somebody, or him marrying somebody from a different race, you will find there's many fallouts. And when there's cultural differences that contradict the book of Allah, and he reminds them and they replace him with somebody else, or one of their countrymen come into the country and he has a good understanding of Quran and Sunnah, and they put him in those positions because blood is thicker than water. Then we find those same African American Muslims, they have not spent any effort in developing the African American communities. They haven't spent no effort in building any Islamic institutions, even no dawah efforts, no dawah centers, no economics, no social programs in the black community. So we'll find that while we are engaged in these multicultural communities, we are hampered in developing our own community. And for many of the African American Muslims, because there is no accountability in the black community and no one holds them accountable in those multicultural communities, he could sit there and no one will never question him about why he is not establishing Islam in his own community with his people where they are not Muslims and they need Islam. they would need Islam. There's no one in those cultural communities because they feel they're not from your race or they don't understand black people's culture. None of them will hold him accountable. No one will push him. No one will engage in him about these important topics. Why he's not in the black community, developing Islam and dealing with black people's social issues. And you have in the multicultural Muslim communities, a lot of the Arabs and the Desis and those Muslims who are in it, they will work around black people, they will live around black people, they will see all the social problems, and they will be wondering why this black imam who work in their masjid, why he's not putting no effort into calling his people to Islam or establishing Islam with his people. I said a lot in this particular video. I hope this video reach who needs to reach, because we do have these particular issues. This is one of the these are some of the dilemmas of Black American Muslims and multicultural communities. And as I said in the beginning of this video, I made a disclaimer that I'm not speaking about those African American Muslims where there's not a lot of Muslims in this community anyway. So this is his community, whether it's a multicultural community or a black community. This is their community, or they're working, or they're engaging, or they're in these communities because they want to save themselves and their families from the hellfire. I'm not addressing those individuals, but I'm addressing those individual African American Muslims who have the know-how, the talents, the understanding of religion, and they refuse to go inside their black communities and build something, or build a masjid or a dawah center or anything about social issues from a Islamic perspective. So these are some of the dilemmas the multicultural community face for African American Muslims. Another one that I want to touch on is that it might even not just reflect African American Muslims in the multicultural Muslim communities, but the reverts or the converts who are in these multicultural communities where there is not a space for them. I will say it again, there's not a space for them, meaning that people do not recognize them and don't understand that the convert, the revert, the African American Muslim, whether he's Latino revert, white revert, that there's some experience in America or Canada or Western countries that the foreign Muslims who are foreigners, they cannot relate with, they cannot relate to. And I give you a clear example: the sister who come to Islam and she have multiple children and not married. Sometimes these sisters are ashamed in these communities. Sometimes she is looked down at in these communities, not knowing that this woman embraced Islam and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive her for any past sins. When she entered into it's the folds of Islam and she's involved in these multicultural communities, you'll find many of the members looking down at her children. So this will also show why they need to have their own circles where they feel safe spaces. And back to Black American Muslims, also we are also in most cases the venues for revert Muslims, no matter what is their nationality. We are like a venue for them because we can understand other people's struggles in America. So sometimes we could be a venue for them, meaning that we can embrace them and they can have a place with us, and we could deal with the social issues that plague American societies, especially when it comes to Black African Americans. We could deal with some of the social issues that's going on. And I really want to emphasize on the importance of African American Muslims developing their own communities. The Arabs don't understand your people like you understand your people. The Asian Muslims do not understand Black people like you understand Black people. I say it again. The Asian Muslims don't understand Black people like you understand Black people. Arab Muslims do not understand Black people like you understand Black people. And you be the best fit to call your people to Islam. You will be the best people to address the social issues in your communities, in your Black communities. And if you hide out, if you use the multicultural Muslim communities as a place to escape, to shirk your responsibility in calling your people to Islam and dealing with their social issues, if you use the multicultural community for this, then you are doing a disservice to your people. You are doing a disservice to your people. And you're going to be questioned about these things on the day of judgment. Why didn't you call your people, your nationality, to Islam? The people who you speak their language, the people that you share their DNA, the people that you understand their thinking, the people that you understand their social problems, the people that you understand their struggles. Why you refuse to call them to Islam? You're going to be questioned about this, just like you're going to be questioned about your children, just like you're going to be questioned about your household. Trust me, you're going to be questioned about your neighbor. You're going to be questioned about your neighbor. And if you think that this is something that is not important, then when we look into the book of Allah, Prophet Yunus alayhi salam, when we understand from the book of Allah, the different anbiya that they call their peoples to the truth. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam as a Nabi, as a Rasul to all of mankind. But before the Prophet was given prophethood, before that, all prophets went to their people. All prophets went to their qawm, people from their nationality, people from their tribe, and they called them to La ilaha illallah, they called them to the truth, or they dealt with their social issues. And for those African American Muslims who are hiding out in the multicultural Muslim communities, because no one has to pull your coat in those communities. No one has to hold you accountable in those communities. If you're hiding out and you're using those communities as excuse not to do anything, then I'm going to bring you an example of Yunus alayhi salam. Yunus, because he refused to go call his people to the truth, he was what? Swallowed up in the belly of the well. He was swallowed up in the belly of the well. Why? Because he what? He turned around from calling his peoples. And Allah allowed him to be what? Swallowed up in the belly of the well. So now this story is going to reflect those callers of Islam, those da'is, those du'at, those a'imma, those imams who are not calling their people to Allah, who are sitting in these multicultural Muslim communities. And then you get into a conflict with those same Muslims in those communities. You get in a conflict with the Desi Muslims. When you get in a conflict with the Arab Muslims, when you get in conflict with the Asian Muslims, when you get in a conflict with them based on race issues, and people not calling to Allah, or people not holding on to the book of Allah, rather you're holding on to the culture, and they kick you out and they put you out, that is something good. This is something good. This is something praiseworthy, because now it's going to force you to go and work with your people. It's going to force you to go now and work with your people, your qawm, your nationality, your neighborhood, your community, your town. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك واشهد ان لا اله الا انت واستغفرك واتوب اليك.